panel.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to welcome Briana Zhen, who is an environmental operations specialist at San Francisco International Airport, who's going to speak with us about flying towards zero waste. SFO unites against hunger, and the presentation will be about 15 minutes, and we'll have 5 minutes after for Q&A. Bree?
And Bree, you're muted. Thank you so much.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great, wonderful. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick. Sorry, that's not the right one. This is what I wanted. Awesome. You guys had a sneak peek into my inbox. All right, cool. Thank you so much, Washington Group, for having me. It truly is an honor to be here. My name is Briana Zhen. I'm the environmental operations specialist at San Francisco International Airport, and today I'll be going over SFO's food recovery initiatives. And before I begin, this is probably what most passengers are familiar with. This is the terminal facing view of Terminal 2. Shout out to Alaska Airlines, because there's lots of flights going in between SF and Seattle through Alaska.
Bree, don't see your slides advancing in case you're advancing them.
Oh, really? You don't see it sliding at all?
No.
You might have to share your desktop instead of your screen.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, now we have it.
Okay.
Oh, now you have it. Okay, I'll just leave it at this interface. Can you guys see this advancing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you so much, Zenya, for the heads up. So this is Alaska Airlines, and probably what most passengers are familiar with, but what I want to point out here is that at SFO, we are actually like a little city. So we have our on-site electricians, plumbers, where they troubleshoot all sorts of issues inside the terminal and our facilities buildings. We even have our on-site generated solar panels where we generate a portion of our electricity here. We even have a water treatment plant that is within the SFO campus. So it's been really great implementing sustainability programs here because it truly operates like its own little city. And then on top, while the crest of this presentation is going to be on food recovery, which falls under zero waste, we actually have really comprehensive zero waste goals that range from zero net energy, and this refers to sourcing SFO's electrical consumption from renewable sources. And here, our scope 2 emissions are currently all carbon free because we do it from the on-site generated solar panels, which is on top of the international terminal. If you ever get a chance to ride the air train here, you'll see huge arrays of solar panels on top of some of our buildings. And then the rest of it comes from hydropower. And then for zero carbon, that is what it sounds like. It refers to reducing airport controlled emissions. And we're doing this through electrifying our fleet, transitioning buildings away from natural gas and toward electrification, but also most importantly, working with our aviation partners to reduce our scope 3 emissions, which accounts for 99% of our carbon emissions, really is kind of the takeoff and the landing of all the planes that get people from point A to point B. And zero waste, we follow the 90% diversion from landfills, kind of our overarching metric and guideline for the policies that we implement here. And then water stewardship, as I had mentioned, we have a water treatment plant, but it's also really important for folks in our landscaping team where we practice xeriscaping exclusively in California natives, and also things like drip irrigation. So all of these kind of sustainability goals and ambitions are embedded within not just folks within the sustainability team, but other folks in the water treatment plant, other folks in landscaping, for example. And then onto our zero waste initiatives at SFO. So one of the things that we're doing is, of course, food recovery, but on top of that, we also have really comprehensive zero waste programs pertaining, for example, to passenger sorting. So as you can see here, we have what we call our trios, and they are all throughout our terminals. And recently in this past year, I'd worked on a new rollout of new bins with different lids. So the recycling lid has a circular opening to incentivize things like this glass bottle and cans to go in there. And then the compost opening is this huge square one, because a couple years ago, we implemented a food and beverage concessionaires policy where all of the food serviceware has to be certified compostable. So like this plate here, for example, is an item that is accepted at SFO because it is fiber-based and certified compostable to go into the compost bin. So we don't have any, for any meal items, we don't have any petroleum-based plastic foodware. And then for landfill, it really is the residuals, and we have the smaller square opening to hopefully kind of promote the path of most resistance to landfilling, because when passengers buy food here, hopefully they'll just see the bigger compost bin and then put their salad container inside the bigger compost bin opening. And on top of that, we also have policies where we require all of our food concessionaires to have plastic-free beverages, plastic being the petroleum-based kind. So we only allow for glass containers and aluminum cans. As you can see here, this is one of our concessionaires at Napa Farms in Terminal 2, where their whole beverage offerings are either in glass or aluminum. And this really is kind of to reduce the amount of plastic coming in on site, because the goal of SFO is not to sort out the entire world, right? So we really want to prioritize and focus on what we're bringing in on site, so we don't have to deal with the end of life and kind of handling materials that aren't truly recyclable at times. And then onto the crux of this presentation is kind of what is SFO doing to squash the wasted food problem. So 30 to 40% of food in the US essentially is wasted. And of that, 31% really ties into at the retail and consumer level. So all of this wasted food accounts for over $400 billion worth of food and is roughly 2% of the US GDP. So this is a really big issue all across the board, ranging from the factories and the farms, but also more downstream at the retail level and at the consumer level, which SFO kind of has more leverage over. And kind of what we're doing here is we're looking at the EPA food recovery hierarchy and really trying to prioritize everything that you see at the top two sections. So source reduction and feeding hungry people. And we already, has mentioned in a couple slides previously, we have back of house composting and then also passenger facing composting already. And really the goal is to reduce the amount of material that's being sent to the landfill, because landfills are responsible for, are the third largest generator of methane in the US. So it's really not a productive outlet for anything. So really looking at the first two steps here, the hierarchy. And kind of what SFO Unites Against Hunger is that it's our food recovery program where we partner with food recovery service Replate, and they're based out of the SF Bay area, but they also have satellite offices out in other major cities on the East Coast. And the way that the whole operation works is that Replate is our service provider. And what Replate does is that they come on site 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they will pick up the surplus food from the centralized drop-off rooms, which look like this photo here. And as you can see here, the silver door is the commercial size refrigerator, and then those red crates are all filled with surplus food. So they will pick up that food from that centralized location 3 times a week and then haul it off to a nonprofit service provider that is serving those facing food insecurity. And this whole program, SFO Unites Against Hunger, really would only be possible with service providers like Replate and also generous grant funding and support from the city and county of San Francisco and their Department of the Environment. And then this here is a more intimate look at what those centralized drop-off rooms look like. This is a pretty standardized layout of each room. We currently have 3 operating centralized communal drop-off rooms for our business tenants to access. So for example, if you were a Starbucks, they have one in Terminal 3, you would walk your pastries to this room and then just drop it off. And if it needs refrigeration, we have, each room is equipped with these commercial sized fridges. You just place it in one of these crates, take one of our little like Post-it notes and then write Starbucks Terminal 3 and then just drop it off here. So it's a really simple process. And the goal is to have at least one of these centralized drop-off rooms in every single wing. So we have T1, Terminal 1, Terminal 2, Terminal 3, International A, and then International G. And then I also have a fourth food donation hub opening up in Terminal 1 soon.
Bree,
And
I
then
think
how
we
do
have
I?
about I'm sorry to interrupt. I think we have about 3 minutes left before Q&A.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Okay.
I will speak. Okay,
No, you're good.
so how do SFO business tenants get started? So the way that it works is I sign them up and then it's really a simple process. So they will fill out this pickup form, which takes 2 minutes, and then drop off the food, and then bam, they're done with their end of the process. And we currently have 42 businesses signed up out of 108 food vendors at SFO, which is about a 39% enrollment rate. And this is the breakdown of them. And then we accept a variety of foods. So we have prepackaged sandwiches. Those are really common from our retail shops. So once those hit their best by date, or their sell by date, actually, the retail shops will bring it to here. And then we have also collected breakfast sandwiches, which were oversupplied to this coffee shop, so they donated it. And then these beverages here, there's nothing wrong with them, but they maybe sustained a little bit of cosmetic damage in the shipping. So these stores don't want to put slightly dented drinks out for sale, so they'll donate it. And in terms of the impact that we've had for the last 13 and a half months, we've recovered 17,300 pounds, which accounts for over 4 million gallons of embedded water saved, roughly translated to 14,000 meals served, and 35,000 pounds of carbon diverted. And these are just, if you're wondering how it's calculated, it's through average emission factors granted from Precycle, the USDA, and the UN for the water. And then this here is just a more intimate look at kind of what the perspective of the food donor side is. So Pete's, they have a couple locations all across the terminal, and they started participating in November 2022. And so far they've donated over 150 pounds of surplus food. And the director of the SFO operations thinks that, it makes all the oops moments hurt a lot less, knowing that they're not filling landfills, but helping those facing food insecurity. And then this here is just another image of kind of the sandwiches. Nothing wrong with them. They just sometimes over purchase, or once it hits the sell by date, then they're like, whoopsies, we, made a procurement whoopsies, and they'll drop it off here. And this here, just to make a full circle, is the nonprofit recipient. So one of our nonprofit recipients is the Samaritan House. And kind of what they really help with is they provide all sorts of things, from dental clinic to children's clothes to case support for the 22,000 people that use their services every single year. So we drop off some of our surplus food to them. And then in terms of next step for SFO expansion, really our goal is to get to 100% business enrollment and maximum recovery of surplus food by January 1st, 2024. And kind of, I'll actually skip through this and go here for time's sake. But one of the big reasons and kind of a big impetus and driver for such an ambitious 100% goal is that California has really robust climate legislation to support with these initiatives. So there's a California Senate Bill 1383, short-lived climate pollutants reduction strategy, which mandates that we want to divert, that sets goals statewide to divert 75% of organic material ending up in landfills by 2025. And part of this landfill reduction goal, a big component of it is to increase edible food recovery along with composting. But I would say SFO is kind of ahead of its time, and we've had composting for a very long time now. So really the main focus in terms of SB 1383 compliance is on the edible food recovery piece. And then I wanted to leave everyone with a call to action and how to reduce wasted food at home. So one thing that's really important for me is to introduce mindfulness into your shopping routine. When I was in college, I had friends that would go to Costco, buy a bunch of things in bulk, but they were a household of one. So they thought they were saving money, per ounce, which they were, but they ended up wasting a lot. Another good resource, I think, is savethefood.com. They have a lot of refrigeration management and storage tips. And then another thing is understanding date labels. So sell by, use by, and best before. And there's also the fourth thing is we have a lot of technology apps we can leverage nowadays. And I don't know if these two apps are up in the Pacific Northwest area, but they might be. Too Good To Go is a really great app where they allow restaurants to, at the end of the day, to offer way discounted food. So it's like pastries that didn't sell at the end of the day. So you can drop by the bakery. So you can reserve a surprise bag online and then drop by the bakery at 9 p.m. at night or at their preferred time, and then just pick up those pastries that were not, that did not sell during the day. So I've gotten some really good deals and big bags of food from Too Good To Go in the past. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully went a little over time, but I'm ready for the Q&A now.
It was all wonderful. Thank you so much, Bree. And we do have Too Good To Go. And my daughter's actually a college student in California and uses it all the time and is always just kind of blown away by like how great the food is for how little she paid. So it's wonderful. I'll start with a question. And that is, I'm curious the business model for Replate and if that is through, is the nonprofit, Replate's a nonprofit, correct? And are they getting grant funding to be able to do this work, or is SFO paying them for the service?
Yeah, so right now, the kind of business model is that SFO has received grant funding from the Department of the Environment, which is a government group from the City and County of San Francisco to pay Replate. So right now, it's all grant funded. That's how SFO is paying Replate. But SFO, in its upcoming months, I'm working on a request for proposal right now, and we are going to have to, because we can't rely on grant funding in perpetuity, so SFO eventually is going to have to bear the onus of paying Replate or another service provider for this service, especially because it is now an upcoming compliance requirement. So I've really been able to take that Senate bill and that state requirement and make the case to senior management SFO of why they need to fund this. But also, luckily for me, the C-suite here, they're all really invested in sustainability. So thankfully, it wasn't a super difficult pitch. I think they understand the kind of societal benefits too of donating the surplus food. And then in terms of what Replate charges, they're currently charging me around $60 to $65 per pickup. And you can look, they actually have their pricing matrix listed online too, in terms of what it is. But I know Replate before COVID, they did have a lot of like grant funding from like the EPA and so forth too. I don't know about right now.
And I can't see if there are hands up because
I have my hand up, Erin.
Okay, go Heather.
Bree, that was really, really interesting. And we do have HB 1799 in Washington, which will cause the same cascade of businesses needing to source separate their organics. So my question is, what has been the biggest barrier for the individual tenants or businesses to actually say yes to you? Why have they said no when you try to get them to do it?
Yeah, so just going back to the slide that I have here. So this 39% enrollment was all voluntary and not through any formal pitch program. This was me, like I had built a relationship with that store manager. So I've been able to kind of just weasel my way and cajole them into participating. And that was not a hard sell at all. But I would say the biggest hurdle is not enough real estate and infrastructure for these rooms across the terminal. Because in my kind of negotiation with the property managers where they control all the leasing of all the space here, anytime sustainability takes space away at the airport, you're essentially taking away a revenue source from the airport where they could be charging United Airlines like, $1 million for a room leased over, 2 years, right? So it's kind of, yeah, I would say the biggest challenge is not so much on the business participating in, because I found that a lot of the businesses I talk to, they also understand the morality of having so much wasted food. And it's their staff every single day, right? They will be the ones clearing out the shelves and throwing it away. And they understand, wow, like the sandwich is still good, but because it's just past its sell by date, we can't sell it. So we have to chuck it into the compost. So it actually, to my surprise, was not a hard sell to the businesses. I would say it's a harder sell dealing with the kind of real estate constraints internally to make it convenient for the business. But I think in terms of the business side, like for example, I don't have one of these centralized rooms in Terminal 2 yet. So asking businesses to walk from Terminal 2 to Terminal 3 to drop it off. Some of them do that, but I would say it's a really big ask of them to go across terminals.
Bree, I have a million more questions, but we are unfortunately out of time. I hope the SeaTac airport here is taking notes. Thank you so much. It is time to turn it over to Alex Erzen with King County Solid Waste to talk with us about pallets and wood. I think we need to spotlight Alex.
Hi, can you see my screen okay, my slides?
Yes.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Erzen with King County Solid Waste. I'm going to be talking to you today about 2 of our transfer station reuse projects. So King County Solid Waste Division owns and operates 8 transfer stations and landfill in Maple Valley. That's the view from the landfill there. And we bury about 900,000 tons of waste every year there in Maple Valley. So this is the King County solid waste system is separate from the city of Seattle. We work together and frequently talk and partner, but this is the cities outside of Seattle, part of King County solid waste system. So when we're talking about not just wood, but reusable building materials as well, but about 7% of our waste stream is clean wood, or 60,000 tons per year is currently being landfilled. So that's unpainted, untreated dimensional lumber, pallets, sheet goods like plywood and oriented strand board, and engineered wood products. And we have, as I said, 8 transfer stations, and 4 of them we have currently space to capture wood, some of this clean wood. So the photo on the right there is our Factoria transfer station, part of the clean wood recycling area. So people bring in clean wood, they pay less to recycle it in our clean wood areas than they would otherwise to dispose of it. And as Kinley mentioned earlier, if you saw his presentation this morning, clean wood is banned from our system, is one of the banned materials, but there is still some wood obviously getting in into the landfill system. But we are capturing about 2,000 or maybe 2,500 tons per year at these 4 transfer stations, and we deliver it to a wood recycler in the area who some of it gets turned into things like mulch or wood chips, but a lot of it is burned as fuel in industrial boilers, as hog fuel. So that's our what we're hoping for here is that we're going to be burying less wood and burning less wood, because obviously reusing wood would be much better than doing those things. And we have a waste characterization from 2019, which characterizes all the different materials that go into our garbage and our waste stream every few years. They're doing a new one now. That's where the 60,000 tons comes from. We did another waste study 2 or so years ago and looking only at wood, and we were able to, it wasn't really a detailed waste study, but we could tell that obviously there's a lot of pallets in our waste stream. possibly one of the larger portions of materials we get in our waste stream. So we're hoping to, the intention of this is to get more wood that's directly reusable and reuse it. So these are all photos from 2021 when we, working with our colleagues at the City of Seattle, Seattle Public Utilities, we used grant funding from the Department of Ecology's Recycling Development Center to give a grant to a couple different organizations in the area. These are photos from what was Rainier Wood Recycling at the time. They were pulling out these stacks of pallets and dimensional lumber and sheet wood. And this is all from their site that these are loads that they get delivered to them from businesses, also from our transfer stations and other sources. And so we were able to work with them and say, you know, can you demonstrate that it's feasible to do this and that you have this material that is recoverable and would be much better, put to better use as reusable wood. And so these are some of the photos from that. And that was one of the impetus for doing this. We could say, look, we've already seen that it's possible. Now let's try it at one of our transfer stations. And so, well, we're doing two projects coming up this summer. The first one is at our Enumclaw transfer station that's in Southeast King County. And the second one is at the Shoreline transfer station. Enumclaw will be pallets and Shoreline will be wood and other reusable building materials. So this is a photo of our Bow Lake transfer station, which is our largest one. And you can see a lot of pallets in there, a lot of crate materials and dunnage. That's just on top. There's all kinds underneath. We have all kinds of photos showing lots of very clean, dry wood. And it gets currently, you know, mostly ground up, as I said, to use as fuel because it's dry and it's very easy to use that way and profitable for the companies that are doing that. But we are working with our vendor and hopefully sometime maybe in the next few weeks or at least in the next couple months this summer to begin this new project at, as I said, our Enumclaw station, where we're basically going to be telling people with signs and other information to set aside their pallets if they are intact, not broken, reusable, rather than putting them in the wood recycling area. So this is Bow Lake. The recycling area at Enumclaw looks much different from this, but we've created signs. We're just kind of waiting to finalize our contract with our vendor at the moment, but it's just really a change in the way we handle them, the pallets and the way we load them and deliver them to the wood vendor. And so we're not really sure right now how many we're going to match, or I keep saying, sorry, I work on mattresses as well, and I want to say mattresses, but talking about pallets, we're not really sure how many it's going to be at the moment, but we do get a lot of trucks coming in with just a load full of stacked pallets and dumping them out here. And so if we can demonstrate that it works at our Enumclaw station, which is maybe further away and has a different layout than a lot of our other stations, we're then expecting we can expand the same program to other stations in the future. The other project is at our Shoreline station. And this is, we piloted a similar project about 10 years ago, not in the same area, but you can see at the bottom center of the photo is the rectangular building. That's our scale house where you enter the transfer station. And the upper right corner is beyond the photo is where the actual transfer station is. But this is the entrance to the station, and the green rectangle is where we're working with some businesses and organizations to set up also sometimes, hopefully this summer, but we're not sure exactly when, but a reuse area here. So customers entering the station before they come in, before they enter our transfer station, they would go through that gate there and enter that loop area and be able to offload perfectly reusable items like shelving, fixtures, windows, dimensional lumber. Those are the things we're really targeting. We're not going to do pallets at this reuse area, maybe in the future, but that's a separate material and focus later. But we did do this before, actually the lower left corner of the photo on a different scale, and it was on limited hours and things like that. So we have some information about that. We worked with Second Use and the Restore back then. And we may be working with one or a couple of different ones this coming time, but we're still going through the contracting process for that, which takes a while. And as I said, we're hoping to have that some set up sometime soon this summer. But then, yeah, we're going to be tracking how many tons of materials we get, what kind of materials they are besides just wood. The folks we've worked with in the past who are going to be part of this do a very good job of quantifying, what the value of a material is, how much it weighs, what the greenhouse gas impacts of it are. So we're hoping we're going to get really good information out of that, and we can show to our other division staff that this is a worthwhile project, and we want to be able to expand it to other stations. And this is going to be another source of materials going into our local circular ecosystem, as Kinley was talking about earlier today. And the way we're setting up really is trying to make it as simple as possible to integrate with our current operations and not impact the way things are done at our stations, which are mainly for handling garbage. And these are new things. We're not sure exactly how they're going to go, but we should have at least some good information very soon from that. And it's just one piece in our larger circular wood strategy, as Kinley was talking about earlier. Really getting wood out of the waste stream and building it back into buildings. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there and return some extra time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex. I have a question to start, kind of piggybacks on what was asked earlier of Kinley regarding if a materials marketplace would be useful. They think about the supply that you'll have, and it sounds like you're still in a process of piloting it and understanding what that volume is going to be, what that supply is regularly going to be. But if I was, say, a builder who wanted to be using those materials, how would I just come to the site to see what's available? And in that instance, is that where something like an online marketplace where you could see an inventory, would that be useful?
I'm not sure. We've been parts of other online marketplaces in the past. We've been supportive of the Washington Materials Marketplace. We've spoken with Reaply. We have our own What Do I Do With website. So in speaking with a lot of the folks who are involved in deconstruction, salvage, and reuse, these are often, as Heather was saying earlier about going to one of those stores and trying to find some salvage wood, and they just didn't have any at the moment, but things move quickly. A lot of them don't have the time to spend online updating these things. We worked with, I forget his name, but the name of his website is Recapture It, who was really interested in working with building materials specifically. And I haven't seen the progress on how that's going lately, but I think his website is up and running. But from the folks we've worked with, it's really, they have their own existing networks. There's the Northwest Salvage Building Network, reuse stores, and salvage experts. The photos I showed you from 2 years ago, where we were working with the folks who pulled all the lumber and the sheet goods and stuff out, and they sent that to Sankofa in Portland, who was making that. And then they worked with the FSC certified wood supplier, Sustainable Northwest Wood in Portland. And so I think getting, those connections between builders and wood suppliers and folks who are manufacturing those things and folks who are processing that's what we're trying to finalize the connections in all those. And, so we know some of that wood from that demonstration project did go to a local area builder who was using it to build homes. So, but I think the way that those materials move around is difficult. And I know in the future, we're hoping it would be a lot easier to do it through these online marketplaces. But I'm sorry, that's a bit of a wandering answer, but we hope that's part of it. But at this point, we're kind of focusing on other parts.
Yeah, that makes sense. Heather has a question.
Anyone who knows me knows I asked a ton of questions. So that was really interesting, Alex. And we have just moved our office into SODO, into a warehouse. And so we are now way more plugged into what's going on the ground with a lot of this industrial waste. And I met a gentleman who I'm sure was operating, not officially, but he was going around with a pickup truck, picking up pallets. And I said, well, how do you know that the pallets are ready for you to pick up? He said, everyone leaves them outside of their doors. So everyone, all these businesses in maybe the entire state are leaving their used pallets right outside their doors. This guy, and he said, and I had one that was extra big, and he said, well, I can't take that, but this other guy that takes that. If I see him, I'll tell him to come get yours. And so I said, well, how much are you charging for the, or no, he gets them for free. I said, how much do you get paid? And he said he gets paid $1.50 for each pallet that he brings into a place, I think in Tacoma. So I'm wondering if you are aware of kind of this network of people who are collecting pallets and how that could connect into your effort, or how you could maybe even create some partnerships there.
Yeah. So we did some pallet outreach and research a few years ago, and didn't really come up with any good results. So that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing now. With the manufacturers in the area that we spoke with, we're not interested in pallets from us, from transfer stations. You know, that's probably not a surprising answer for most of you. I do know of some of those folks who are doing that. On our What Do I Do With website, we list a business which I think is somewhere in the northeast part of the county who does that, goes around and picks up pallets. So I think there's a lot of sort of informal reuse of that. But I also think a fair amount of those probably are also still going into hogwood or hog fuel, or you know, I see businesses. I live in West Seattle, and there's a business that leaves a bin outside their business where people can pick up pieces of dunnage to use as firewood. So yeah, it's something we would like to do more with, and part of this is we're hoping we can demonstrate, look at all these good pallets that we're able to save and not damage further, and we can build more infrastructure or a bigger network of pallet reuse, repair, and exchange. But at the moment, we've kind of, and I think, the last few years with everything going on, COVID and the economy, things like that have maybe died down somewhat. But yeah, I know there's been a few other websites like palletexchange.com or something like that people were using. So everybody does, like you said, everybody has pallets, and there's lots of them out there. I think a lot of folks who buy big quantities of pallets basically have, as part of their contract, they can return them to the manufacturer to have them repaired or refurbished or whatever. But I think that's only probably large businesses, and so there's probably tons of small businesses who just get rid of them and want to get rid of them for free.
Piggybacking on that, does the county have a revenue model, a sales model with this, or would they just be free for people to come pick up?
So are you talking about pallets specifically, or the shoreline building materials?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, either or.
So they're not going to be able to come pick them up.
Gotcha.
There's none of our transfer stations have like cherry picking. I think there's some kind of rules or laws against that.
Yeah.
The shoreline building materials one, we're still figuring out. There's some idea of there might be a tool library, there might be some donation reuse that way on site, but generally we would have the businesses take the materials that they capture there back to their business and resell them or reuse them off-site, at Shoreline at least. For the pallets in Enumclaw, again, we're going to be delivering the pallets to the pallet or to the wood recycler, who has their own relationships with businesses who want to buy those pallets.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that. And I think we're at time, unless there's any other quick questions. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Super interesting.